The cameras weren't even supposed to be rolling when it happened. But what unfolded in that Atlanta lounge has become one of the most explosive scandals reality television has ever seen. Picture this, a late-night after-party, music still pumping. In the background, when whispers began to spread like wildfire through the crowd, someone had shocking receipts that would shake not only young Jock's relationship but the entire love and hip-hop circle. Fans are already calling it the betrayal of the decade, and once you hear what went down, you'll understand why. It started with a live mic left hot by mistake. Jock's voice, low and nervous, could be heard confirming what no one thought possible, that he had quietly fathered a child with none other than Karlie Red. His longtime on-again, off-again flame and one of the most controversial women in Atlanta's reality scene. For years, viewers joked that Jock and Karlie were the couple that could never quite cut ties. No matter how much drama, tears, and accusations piled up. But no one, absolutely no one expected a secret baby to be part of the story. Within minutes, phones were out, clips were circulating, and the shocking confession was trending. By the time Kendra, Jock's wife, got word, the whole city was buzzing. And let me tell you, when she arrived at that lounge, the tension in the room could have shattered glass. Witnesses say her energy was a mix of fury, heartbreak, and determination, because this wasn't just about betrayal, it was about public humiliation. Fans who caught the live stream say she walked straight into the chaos, eyes locked on Jock and Karlie, her voice cutting through the music like a knife. Tell me it's not true. Say it to my face. What happened next left friends divided, the family torn apart, and fans replaying every second of the footage, searching for clues they might have missed. And as the night unraveled, emotions ran higher than ever, spilling into accusations, tears, and revelations that no one saw coming. This wasn't just another love and hip-hop moment, this was an implosion, live, raw, and impossible to ignore. From the moment Kendra stormed into that lounge, the atmosphere shifted into something nobody could control. And every single person present knew they were about to witness a showdown that would be replayed and dissected for years to come. The music faltered, the chatter stilled, and even Jock's usual charm failed him as Kendra's eyes bore into him like fire. Fans watching live say, you could feel the betrayal radiating through the screen. The kind of raw energy that silences a crowd before the first word is even spoken. Jock's attempt to steady his voice fell flat as he tried to say, "Babe, listen, it's not what it looks like." But the words hung empty, drowned by the eruption of gasps when Karlie Red, sitting just a few feet away, shifted in her seat, with a nervous laugh that felt more like a confession than a denial. And it was that laugh, soft, uneasy, but undeniably real, that pushed Kendra past the point of no return. Witnesses describe her voice as trembling with anger yet razor sharp when she snapped back, "So it's funny to you, my marriage, my trust, my dignity is all just a joke to you." And Karlie's silence only made the accusation heavier. What fans couldn't believe was Jock's complete loss of composure, a man who has smoothed over scandals for years, now standing exposed, fumbling, with nothing but his guilt written across his face. The drama only escalated as friends and castmates attempted to step in. Sierra tried to place a hand on Kendra's arm to calm her down, but Kendra shook her off with a glare that made clear she wasn't about to be silenced. Not tonight. Meanwhile, Scrappy and Spice exchanged uneasy glances, whispering in the corner, like they knew this night was about to spiral into a mess no one could contain. And they were right, because within seconds, accusations started flying in every direction. Kendra accused Jock of humiliating her, of lying not just to her but to their families and the fans who had believed in their love story. While Jock tried and failed to explain how things got complicated during a rough patch. But the most shocking moment came when Karlie finally stood up, her voice shaking yet determined, and said, "If we're going to put it all out there, let's tell the whole truth." That single line cracked the night wide open. The crowd drew closer, cameras zoomed in, and fans watching live braced themselves. Because Karlie Red was never one to hold back once she decided to speak her mind. Her admission hit like a tidal wave, that yes, there had been a moment, a lapse, a rekindled spark that neither she nor Jock expected to turn into something lasting. And then she said the words that made Kendra clutch her chest as though she'd been struck. "There is a child, and he is Jock's." The room erupted, shouts, screams, curses on phones whipped up into the air as fans scrambled to capture the confession that was already rewriting the entire narrative of Jock's marriage. Kendra staggered back, and it was Rashida who grabbed her by the shoulders, whispering urgently for her to breathe, to stay calm, while Jock reached out helplessly, trying to touch her arm, only for her to jerk away like his hand burned her. "Don't you dare touch me," she spat, her voice breaking in the middle of the sentence. And fans say it was one of the most gut-wrenching moments in love and hip-hop history. The intensity only grew when the friends began to take sides. Some, like Scrappy, muttered that Jock had always been reckless, that this was just another mess of his making. While others like young baby Tate insisted that nobody had the right to humiliate Kendra like this, not in public and not on a live feed that had already spread beyond Atlanta. Meanwhile, Spice added her own fire to the mix by calling out Karlie directly, saying, "You live for chaos, but this ain't just another storyline, this is a woman's marriage, you just blew up." Karlie fired back, insisting she wasn't the villain, that Jock had pursued her during his marital troubles, and she wasn't going to carry the blame alone. The back and forth turned the lounge into what fans described as a battlefield of accusations, truths, half-truths, and raw emotions that nobody could contain. And then came the twist nobody anticipated. A fan in the crowd, who claimed to be connected to Karlie's inner circle, shouted out that they had proof pictures and messages showing Jock sneaking to meet Karlie during the very time he was assuring Kendra that their marriage was solid. Phones lit up as the images were passed around, screenshots flashing across the crowd like wildfire. And when Kendra saw them, her knees nearly buckled. Rashida and Sierra caught her, but not before. She unleashed a cry that echoed through the lounge, a sound that fans say was part fury, part heartbreak, part disbelief. Jock, cornered and exposed, begged for a chance to explain, stammering that things aren't what they look like. But Kendra cut him down with one sentence that has since gone viral. "The only thing that's not what it looks like is the man I thought I married, because you, Jock, are a stranger to me now." The fallout was immediate. Some guests began leaving, shaken by the rawness of the confrontation, while others stayed glued, unable to tear themselves away from the drama unfolding in real time. Social media exploded with hashtags, memes, and live commentary, with fans debating whether Karlie was telling the whole truth, whether Jock had been lying for years, and whether Kendra would walk away for good. But in the lounge itself, the night was far from over. Karlie, emboldened by the chaos, continued to throw shade, accusing Kendra of playing innocent when she allegedly knew Jock wasn't faithful from the start. That accusation nearly sparked a physical altercation as Kendra lunged forward, restrained only by Rashida and Sierra, her voice breaking as she screamed, "Don't you dare rewrite my pain for your entertainment." The producers, scrambling to manage the escalating tension, reportedly considered cutting the live feed, but by then it was too late. The story had taken on a life of its own, spreading across timelines, group chats, and blogs faster than anyone could contain. Fans around the world were refreshing their screens, desperate for updates. As Atlanta's nightlife scene turned into ground zero for one of the most scandalous revelations in love and hip-hop history, and even as the night seemed to peak in intensity, the storm was only beginning. Because Kendra wasn't about to let the betrayal end with a confession. She wanted answers, accountability, and above all, respect. Even if she had to drag it out of Jock and Karlie right there in front of the cameras. And with that determination burning through her eyes, the lounge braced for the next chapter of a night that was spiraling far beyond anyone's control. Kendra's voice cracked with fury as she turned her whole body toward Jock, her hands trembling, not from fear but from rage, and she demanded, "When were you going to tell me? After I'd wasted more years of my life? After everybody else knew but me?" Jock's mouth opened, but nothing came out, his usual smooth-talking charm failing him completely, as the entire room waited for an answer that never came. Instead, Karlie leaned back with folded arms, her smirk thin and bitter, and said loud enough for everyone to hear, "He wasn't ever going to tell you, Kendra. You were just supposed to keep playing the wife while he kept playing you." Those words hit like a dagger, and Kendra's face twisted with the pain of betrayal layered on top of humiliation. Tears brimming in her eyes but refusing to fall as she refused to show weakness. Fans watching live said that moment broke them, because you could see her entire world unravel in real time. Yet she stood tall, her pride battling with heartbreak in a war that everyone in that lounge could feel. Jock finally tried to step forward, his hand raised in a pleading gesture, but Scrappy stepped between them, shaking his head at Jock and muttering, "Nah man, you crossed the line, you don't get to beg now." The crowd murmured in agreement, and for once Jock, the man who usually had control of every room, looked small, powerless, and cornered. But if anyone thought the night had reached its climax, they were wrong, because Karlie wasn't finished. Her voice grew louder, stronger, and she threw a bombshell that even the most diehard fans couldn't have predicted. And don't act like this was just one mistake. Jock, tell her how many times you came back. Tell her how you were sneaking around even while you were smiling in her face, talking about loyalty and love. The room gasped again, friends exchanging horrified glances. And Kendra's hands flew to her head as she whispered, almost to herself, how many lies am I living in? The pain in her voice was unbearable to hear, a raw honesty that silenced even those who had been shouting moments earlier. Rashida wrapped an arm around her shoulders, whispering something nobody else could hear, but Kendra shook her off, stepping forward again to stare Jock down, her eyes bloodshot and unblinking. Answer her, she demanded, her tone commanding the room. And Jock's shoulders sagged as if the weight of his own actions had finally broken him. His voice, low and shaky, admitted, it wasn't just once, but it wasn't what you think. I was confused. I was trying to figure things out. That half-confession ignited the room again. Spice shouted, confused, you got a whole baby and you talking about confused. While Sierra snapped, you ruined your marriage for confusion. And the noise rose until it felt like the walls themselves would shake apart. Karlie, seizing the moment, twisted the knife deeper by adding, and don't forget who was there when you needed someone to talk to. When your so-called marriage was crumbling, don't make me the villain when you came back to me, Jock. Her words were soaked with bitterness, but they carried a sting of truth that fans couldn't ignore. Some sided with Karlie, arguing that Jock had clearly pursued her, while others stood firmly with Kendra, insisting that Karlie should have respected the boundaries of a marriage. The division among friends and fans mirrored the chaos inside the lounge, where the tension had splintered into factions of blame, sympathy, and disbelief. Kendra's chest rose and fell rapidly as she struggled to keep her composure, but then, she snapped, her voice echoing, do you realize what you've done to me? To us? To the vows we made? Her hands shook as she pointed at Jock, her finger trembling like the weight of betrayal was coursing through it. I gave up so much for you. I defended you when people called you a player. I stood by you when the world doubted us, and this is how you repay me. Jock's face crumpled with regret, but his silence was louder than any apology could have been. Fans watching live said they wanted to shake him through the screen, screaming for him to say something, anything, to ease the devastation in Kendra's eyes, but all he could manage was a weak, I'm sorry, a phrase that sounded hollow, against the magnitude of the betrayal. Kendra's laugh in response was chilling, broken, and heavy with disbelief, as she muttered, sorry doesn't erase a child, Jock. Sorry doesn't erase lies. Sorry doesn't erase years of me loving a man who never existed. At that point, friends tried harder to calm the situation before it spiraled beyond control. Rashida urged everyone to lower their voices, warning that the cameras were still rolling, but Spice refused to back down, accusing Karlie of chasing clout and calling Jock a coward in the same breath. Sierra tried to escort Kendra outside for air, but Kendra resisted, insisting she wasn't going to be silenced or pushed away from her own truth. The producers could be seen in the background, whispering frantically. But even they seemed too stunned to cut the feed, aware that this was the kind of raw, unscripted chaos that reality television thrives on. Meanwhile, Karlie and Kendra locked eyes, the tension between them electric. And Karlie dared to say, if you think you're the only one he lied to, you're wrong. You don't know half of what he's been doing. That statement sent fresh shockwaves through the room, and fans online immediately began speculating about what else Jock could possibly be hiding. It was then that another twist surfaced. A voice from the back, a woman who claimed to be close to Karlie, shouted out that Jock hadn't just fathered one secret child, but possibly more. The room froze, all eyes swinging back to Jock, who looked like the ground beneath him had collapsed. His denial was immediate, frantic. That's not true. Don't spread lies. But the seed of doubt had been planted, and in the world of love and hip-hop, rumors are often as powerful as facts. Kendra's face turned pale as she asked, is that what I am to you? Just one of many women you destroy with your lies? And her voice cracked on the last word, finally breaking the fragile dam holding her emotions back. Tears rolled down her cheeks as the crowd quieted, the reality of her heartbreak sinking in deeper than any of Karlie's accusations. Fans at home typed furiously, arguing over whether Jock was truly guilty of more secrets or whether the chaos of the night had simply created an opening for opportunists to pile on. Either way, the damage was done. Jock's reputation was in shreds. Kendra's heart was broken, and Karlie had cemented herself as the catalyst for one of the most explosive nights reality TV has ever seen. Even as security began moving closer, worried that the confrontation could turn physical, the tension didn't ease. Jock tried once more to plead, raising his voice over the noise. "Kendra, I love you, and I never stopped loving you. This was a mistake, but you're my wife, and I want to fix this." But Kendra's expression hardened into stone, her tears drying into fury as she replied, "You don't get to talk about love while you're raising a child with another woman. You don't get to fix this with words." Her statement brought another wave of gasps, and even Karlie, who had been smug for most of the night, looked shaken by the finality in Kendra's tone. The crowd felt it too, the sense that a line had been crossed, that there was no going back to the way things were. Fans online began posting that they were witnessing the end of Jock and Kendra's marriage in real time, and the tragedy of it only deepened the drama. And yet, as devastating as it was, everyone knew the night wasn't over, because every word, every look, every revelation seemed to lead to another twist, another betrayal waiting to be dragged into the light. The room had turned into a storm, but Kendra was the eye of it. Her anger sharpened into something cold and deliberate now. No longer just emotional outbursts, but controlled fire aimed squarely at Jock. She stepped closer, her heels striking the floor with finality, and hissed, "You keep saying you love me, but love doesn't hide babies. Love doesn't sneak around with Karlie, and love doesn't leave me humiliated in front of the entire world." Her voice echoed so powerfully that even the music in the background seemed to fade, as if the sound system itself was bowing to her rage. Jock tried to reach for her hand again, desperation painted across his face. But Kendra recoiled as though touching him would infect her with the same betrayal he had been carrying. "You made me fight everyone who doubted us," she went on, her voice trembling with both heartbreak and fury, "and tonight you proved them all right. You proved them. Every warning, every rumor, every joke about Jock being Jock, you proved them right at my expense." Fans watching said her words were like daggers, slicing not just through Jock but through everyone who had blindly rooted for their marriage, leaving them shaken and conflicted. Karlie, however, wasn't finished adding fuel to the fire. She leaned forward, her tone dripping with both pity and venom, as she said, "Kendra, don't act brand new. Deep down, you always knew Jock couldn't change. He's been the same man since the day I met him. You married a fantasy, not the reality." That comment lit a spark in Kendra that flared into full-blown fury. She turned on Karlie, her voice rising as she shouted, "You don't get to talk about my marriage like you were some innocent bystander. You were part of it, you knew what you were doing, and you enjoyed it every single time you crossed that line." The audience erupted at her words, with some cheering Kendra for standing her ground while others murmured in shock at the raw honesty of the confrontation. Spice clapped her hands in the background, shouting, tell her, girl," while Scrappy shook his head, muttering to Jock that he had no one but himself to blame for letting the situation spiral this far. The tension between the two women was so thick that security edged even closer, ready to intervene if hands started flying. But the real blows being traded were emotional, verbal, and cutting deeper than any physical fight could have. Smirk faltered just for a moment, revealing a flicker of discomfort under Kendra's relentless glare. But she quickly covered it up with another jab. "At least I wasn't living a lie. You walked around acting like you had the perfect marriage, like Jock was some kind of saint, when all along, he was in my bed too. Maybe I'm messy, but I wasn't the fool." That last word, fool, seemed to shatter whatever composure Kendra had left. She lunged forward, restrained by Rashida and Sierra, her voice raw as she screamed, "You don't get to call me a fool when you played the role of the side piece in secret." Her body shook with the force of her anger, and fans online said they had chills watching her rage finally spill over into something primal and unstoppable. Jock, caught between two women who were tearing each other apart over his actions, looked like a man drowning with no way to reach the surface. His attempts to mediate fell flat, his words drowned out by the ferocity of Kendra's pain and Karlie's defiance. "Please, stop this," he begged, his voice breaking, but neither woman acknowledged him, both locked in their own battle for dignity, revenge, and truth. The crowd was riveted, phones recording from every angle, the footage instantly streaming across social media platforms, where hashtags about the fight trended worldwide within minutes. Even people who had never watched Love and Hip Hop before were suddenly glued to their screens, unable to resist the chaos of a marriage unraveling and an old flame stoking the fire with revelations no one saw coming. The night then took yet another unexpected turn when someone in the back-end ex-associate of Jocks, who claimed to know the timeline, shouted out that the secret baby wasn't even recent. According to them, the child had been born months earlier, meaning Jock had been hiding the truth from Kendra for far longer than anyone realized. The revelation sent another wave of gasps through the lounge, and Kendra staggered as though the air had been punched from her lungs. Months, she whispered, her voice so low that only those closest could hear, but the heartbreak in that single word was deafening. Karlie seized the opportunity to twist the knife deeper, nodding and saying, "That's right. While he was kissing you goodnight, he was checking on us in the morning." The cruelty of her timing sparked boos from some in the crowd, with even Spice shouting, "Girl, that's cold. You didn't have to say it like that." But Karlie didn't back down, standing tall in her role as the villain of the night, relishing the chaos she had helped unleash. By this point, emotions in the room had boiled past the breaking point. Kendra finally turned back to Jock, tears rolling freely now, and demanded, "How could you look me in the eye, tell me you loved me, and know you had a whole child behind my back? How could you let me wake up every morning thinking I was your everything, when all along, I was just one of your options?" Jock's silence, his inability to give her the answer she deserved, made the wound even deeper. Fans online began posting that they had lost respect for him completely, calling him weak, a liar, and unworthy of Kendra's devotion. Even his closest friends in the room looked ashamed to stand near him, their silence speaking louder than any defense could. And then, in a moment that nobody could have predicted, Kendra dropped her own bombshell. With her voice steady despite the tears, she revealed that she had already been suspicious. That for weeks she had noticed changes in Jock's behavior, calls, sudden disappearances, and excuses that never quite added up. "I prayed I was wrong," she confessed, her voice heavy with sorrow. "I prayed you were still the man I believed in, but deep down, I knew. And tonight, you confirmed my worst nightmare." Her admission drew sympathetic gasps, with Rashida hugging her tightly and whispering that she deserved better. Karlie rolled her eyes at the display, muttering under her breath, "Victim act." But her words only made the crowd rally harder around Kendra, with Spice shouting, "Don't do that, Karlie. She's hurting, and you know you played your part." At that point, the divide between the friends was complete. The room was split into factions. Those who stood firmly with Kendra, furious at Jock's betrayal and Karlie's cruelty, and those who felt Karlie's honesty, however harsh, was a necessary wake-up call about Jock's true character. The arguments escalated, voices overlapping until the lounge was a cacophony of chaos. But at the center of it all stood Kendra, her pain radiating outward like an earthquake, shaking the foundation of every relationship in that circle. Jock looked like a man who had lost everything, his hands pressed to his face as if hiding from the reality he had created. While Karlie stood defiantly, feeding off the attention, her expression unreadable as she watched the destruction unfold. The live stream captured every second, from the tears on Kendra's cheeks to the beads of sweat on Jock's forehead. And fans at home were hooked, unable to look away even as the situation grew darker by the minute. Theories flooded social media. Was Karlie exaggerating? Was there more than one child? Would Kendra finally walk away? The speculation only added to the frenzy, turning a private heartbreak into a global spectacle. And yet, through all the noise, Kendra's voice rang clear as she declared, "I don't care how many eyes are on us right now. I will not be silenced. I will not be mocked. And Jock, you are going to answer for every single lie you've told me, whether it's tonight or tomorrow, but you will not walk away from this without consequences." Her words hung in the air, a promise and a threat rolled into one. And the crowd held its breath, knowing the night still had more revelations to give. As the dust settled on the battlefield of emotions, it became increasingly clear that silent strength was no longer enough to hold back the storm inside her. Years of betrayal, denial, and forced smiles had taken their toll, and the mask she wore for the world had begun to crack. When she walked out that door, she carried not only her pain but also the weight of every woman who had ever been silenced, ignored, or betrayed in the name of love. Kirk's voice still echoed in her head, the countless apologies, the endless promises that tomorrow would be different, but her soul knew better. She understood that change had never been his intention. Survival had. His charm was survival. His denial was survival. And his excuses were survival. He had survived by convincing her that what she saw was not what she felt, that the lies could be softened with gifts, and that love was measured in how many storms she could endure. But in truth, love had been twisted into a chain, binding her, to a cycle that threatened to erase her spirit. Outside, the city moved as if nothing had happened. People walked the streets, lights flickered in windows. Laughter spilled from corners, and yet, to Rashida, the world felt hollow, as if time itself had paused to witness her breaking point. She could no longer hide behind the public image, the reality show gloss, or the curated moments on screen that made her appear unshakable. Behind the glamour, there was a woman, exhausted by the weight of her own endurance. And though many saw her as the queen who never bowed, the truth was that her crown had been carved from scars. For Kirk, the revelation of his hidden child was not just another scandal to cover up, it was the mirror he had avoided for too long. He could no longer deny that his actions had consequences beyond the momentary thrill, beyond the secrecy of an affair, beyond the whispers exchanged in dimly lit rooms. He had built a legacy. Of betrayals stacked one upon the other. And, though Rashida had been his most loyal soldier, even the strongest soldier knows when the battle is no longer worth fighting. Alone in that empty space, Kirk felt a hollowness he had never known before, a silence heavier than words, a silence that condemned him louder than any argument ever could. He realized, perhaps too late, that the greatest damage he had done was not in the act itself, but in the way he had slowly unraveled Rashida's trust thread by thread until there was nothing left to hold. The irony of it all was that Kirk had always feared losing her, yet it was his very actions that pushed her away. Fear had not stopped him. Arrogance had convinced him she would always return, that forgiveness was her default language, that loyalty was her permanent cage. But loyalty, when abused, transforms into chains, and Rashida had finally broken free. The walkout was not just an exit from a room, it was a declaration that her life would no longer be defined by his shadows. For years, she had been cast as the woman who stayed, the wife who forgave, the figure who endured. Now she was writing a new role, one that did not require her to bleed for love, or to silence her own truth in order to protect someone else's image. Kirk's world was unraveling, and in that unraveling, he was confronted with a question he had long avoided. What does it mean to love when love is no longer enough to excuse the harm you cause? That question lingered in the air like smoke, choking him with the realization that the empire he had built on secrecy and control was collapsing. The hidden baby was not just a scandal, it was the final straw that pulled away the curtain on who he truly was when no cameras rolled, when no one was watching. The irony is that Rashida's silence had always protected him. Her grace had always softened his edges. Her forgiveness had always rewritten the story before it became too damning. But now, without her, there was no rewrite, no shield, no safety net. The man behind the curtain stood exposed, and what the world saw was not a king but a man undone by his own choices. For Rashida, the journey ahead would not be easy. Walking away is never just about leaving a person, it is about leaving the version of yourself that accepted less, tolerated pain, and believed that love required suffering. It is about rediscovering who you are when no one is asking you to be smaller, quieter, or more forgiving. She stepped into that journey with no guarantees, but for the first time in years, she stepped without chains. And in that moment, the quiet power of her choice resonated louder than all the drama, louder than the cameras, louder than the betrayal itself. Because sometimes, the most powerful act of love is not holding on, it is letting go. And in letting go, Rashida reclaimed the one thing Kirk could never give her: freedom. If this story pulled you in, if you felt Rashida's strength, her breaking point, and the weight of choices that echo far beyond one relationship, then don't just let the moment pass. Take a second to show your support by subscribing, because every story we bring carries not just drama, but the deeper truths about love, betrayal, and survival that deserve to be heard. Hit the like button if you believe in strength over silence, and share this with someone who might need to be reminded that walking away can be the beginning of freedom. Your voice matters here. Your thoughts matter, so drop them in the comments and let the conversation continue. This is more than just entertainment, it's a reflection of life, and together we can uncover every layer of it.